It's good to see you. It's been too long. First of all, I was just like so pleased to see that Charlie Sheen was happy to see our series, right? And he was
Yeah.
that he got came on your show and he was talking well about our series, all the
Oh, he
presidents.
loved it.
He
Yeah.
loved it, and yeah, and again, it was really wonderful to see you two together. I appreciate you speaking kindly of me,
Oh,
and
gosh, of course.
and yes, I want to kind of start with Trump and where we are in 2025. It's almost a year in since he was elected. And, he came in with a mandate, I would say, getting all the swing state votes, winning the popular vote, really the first Republican since Bush Sr. to get a mandate like that. Just, how would you summarize this first almost, let's say 9 months or so of his presidency as far as living up to the expectations of his voters?
Well, his voters are happy with him by and large. I mean, polls suggest that. Just like everybody, you get focused on certain issues. And from my perspective, one of the main issues that I've been focused on is the war in Eastern Europe, which I think is, potentially the cause of a third world war and nuclear annihilation. So I think the stakes are as high as they could be. And I want that to be resolved in a way that helps the United States because ultimately I am American and I have a lot of children and I want them to live in a thriving country. And I think that conflict could, really determine to a great extent their futures. I know most Americans don't feel that way, but I feel that way strongly. And that conflict is not only unresolved, it's accelerating. And I'm very distressed about it. And these things are very complicated, but from my perspective, allowing Zelensky, who is unelected, has no moral mandate to run anything, to allow him to do the negotiation, has been a major mistake.
Yeah, and I want to get a little bit more into this Ukraine-Russia conflict. But I think also on the home front, there's a lot of concern from the MAGA people that have dug into this on the Epstein files, right? The idea that Trump has kind of dismissed the idea that Jeffrey Epstein had clients that he serviced with his pedophile trafficking network. The facts that we know about Epstein being connected to intelligence, both CIA and Mossad. So many questions, right, that have been hidden from us. Why do you think this is still being buried?
Well, let me just say I'm for disclosure in general. I don't think in a democracy the government has a right to take the people's money, do things in their name, and then lie to them about it, and then hide the evidence, which is what the state of play in the United States for generations. So I'm for disclosing, the JFK files, which are still undisclosed. By the way, I don't think people are aware of that. I'm for disclosing everything that doesn't bear directly on ongoing operations related to national security. So that would be the entire 9/11 dossier. I'd like to see all of it. We have a right to see all of it. And that would include the US government's files on Epstein. Trump is convinced that this is like Russiagate and it's a complex effort by Democrats to undo his administration. He believes that. He's told me that. I don't think that that's true. I think most of the people implicated in the Epstein files did not vote for Donald Trump. So I just sincerely disagree on that. And I think it's not sent the right message at all to Trump's voters. America's not going to rise or fall on the Epstein files, but showing efforts of good faith disclosure are really important, really, really important in order to maintain trust. And if you don't do that, you can lose trust. And there definitely has been a big loss of trust, and for no reason. I think if we knew everything about Epstein, I don't think it would hurt Donald Trump. I think it would help Donald Trump.
Right. But do you
Um,
think that there's something there that beyond Trump, that it's a reason why this has been so suppressed? Obviously, previously by Democrats, like the Biden administration,
right.
the Trump
I
administration.
mean, well, of course, there's a lot there. Needless to say, he had relationships with U.S. intelligence, Israeli intelligence, British intelligence, apparently also French intelligence. So yeah, of course, they're the British royal family. I mean, the tentacles in the story are wide. And so there are all kinds of people who don't want the information to be disclosed. It's not simply Trump, but Trump is in charge right now. And I would say in public what I've said directly to him, which is that I think this is a mistake. I don't think you're seeing this correctly. If you disclose all this stuff, it helps you. It helps affect justice, which is more important than any of us individually. Doing the right thing, telling the truth, making sure the guilty aren't punished, but are punished and the innocent aren't. Justice is just, as an abstract goal, is essential, and you can't have justice with lying and secrecy. So no, I think symbolically, I'll just say, I think symbolically it's a very powerful issue that has not been handled well at all, and it's hurt the Trump administration, and I'm sad about it.
Another issue besides Epstein, which the left is jumping on now, is the loss of sort of, let's say, free speech when it comes to media, right? Well, not obviously we can delve into the campuses later, but the media factor. And you've seen this during the Biden years, targeting of free speech when it came to questioning the 2020 elections, questioning the COVID origins and vaccine safety, and there was no outcry. But then when the FCC apparently sort of puts pressure on ABC and Disney, right? They pull Kimmel for a week or so. Now the left is up in arms about freedom of the press. So do you have concerns about the abuse?
Do I have concerns? Yeah, I have profound concerns. Yeah, I don't have concerns about Jimmy Kimmel. I mean, his fading career, which is dying from lack of talent, was just resurrected by this. He's fine. I have concerns about the rest of us who conduct all of our political conversation online on social media, which, ABC, CBS, I know Barry Weiss is now running CBS to, make it more friendly to Israel or something. Who cares? Like, CBS is not, it doesn't matter. You could buy 10 CBSs. Here's NBC too. It doesn't matter. What matters, Facebook, Google, TikTok, and X. That's what matters. And those are under attack. Those are being censored in a huge way. And that affects not Jimmy Kimmel, but like 350 million other Americans whose most basic human right, which is the first constitutional right, is being abridged. And I think it's terrifying. And to me, it's personally upsetting because a lot of the people I thought were allied on this issue, on the so-called right, whatever that is, I don't even know what that is now, but people I thought were on my side were the very first people to jump up and say, no, anyone who criticizes the Gaza, whatever's happening in Gaza, I wouldn't call it a war exactly, but the killing in Gaza should be deported or they should loot. I'm not allowed to speak on stage because I have, in a very mild way, questioned the Israeli government. Just to be clear, I've never been an Israel hater. I'm not an Israel hater now, and I probably never will be. I just don't want to be forced into a war with Iran, and I don't want censorship in my country, and the Israeli government is pushing both of those things. So just for saying that, people I thought were on my side on the speech question are like, shut up, we should never hear from him again. I'm shocked by it. I'm absolutely shocked by it. I guess I shouldn't be. Free speech is for the powerless. That's the whole point. It's the great equalizer. You have a lot of money, I have none, but we both get to say what we think. And on some basic level, that makes us citizens together, brothers. We have something in common. And so, but the powerful people never want to be criticized. They don't want their programs criticized. So they're always for censorship. It happens so fast. All these, Josh Hammer and, all these people who you thought were kind of, at least on your side. I disagree with their foreign policy views, but I thought that we were on the same side on speech. No, not at all. The second they got power, they wanted everyone to shut up who was criticizing them. It was amazing to me.
Well, so let's talk about what's driving that, because you are now deemed on the woke right? And this term came up in the last few years. Woke, I guess because you question our unadulterated love of Israel, no matter what they're doing, right? And as we've seen, they can find a brutal war against Gaza. They can bomb Qatar, which is where we have military bases, and it's supposedly an ally of us. Bomb Lebanon, engage basically in a very dangerous gambit in the Middle East. And if you question that, you are labeled as whatever, anti-Semitic. What is driving it? Is it the pro-Israel lobby, the AIPAC, types, the ADL types that are really driving this sort of the desire to censor people like yourself who are questioning this, and obviously to really, as we know, influencing Congress and perhaps even Trump himself into believing that we have to basically just be full force with our support for Israel, or is there something else that we're not seeing here?
Well, I mean, the desire to censor is a human desire. It's much bigger than Israel, or the neocons or America. It's in people. You don't want to be criticized. And if you have the power to stop people from criticizing you, it's tempting to exercise it. So it's that simple on that level. But this particular slander campaign is run by the Israeli government. I mean, they've been pretty open about that, and they're paying Americans to take their positions. I'm not guessing. It's all of a sudden it's all out in the open. So people are taking an awful lot of money to repeat the positions of a foreign government, which I thought was wrong and unpatriotic. And as for the attacks on me, they're too stupid. I mean, there are some things you could say about me that are definitely true and unflattering. I could give you a list of my bad qualities, which is long. But obviously, I'm not taking money from a foreign government. I've never done that. I never would do that. I'm the opposite of woke. I reject all identity politics, including Israeli identity politics. I just don't believe in identity politics. I'm not out here advocating for, middle-aged white Episcopalians from New England, which is what I am. I don't see the world that way. I'm a Christian. I see the world, I hope, the way that God sees it, which is like billions of people who are individuals with individual souls, all created by him. I don't see the world in terms of groups. I don't have loyalty to an ethnic group. So I'm the opposite of woke. And of course, the people who are accusing me of this do have woke politics. Like literally identity politics is what drives them. And this is a phenomenon. I mean, I'm not even mad about it. I don't care really because it's too stupid, but it's an interesting phenomenon where they accuse you of exactly what they're doing. And I remember Bill Kristol, who I worked for years and always liked, by the way, I should say, when Trump entered the world and I started advocating for Trump, Bill Kristol decided I was a Nazi and accused me of, quote, advocating for an ethno-state, which is the last thing I would ever do. Those aren't my views. If they were, I would just say so. They're not. But I did think Bill Kristol spent his life advocating for an ethno-state, Israel, which is an ethno-state. It's not the only ethno-state, but it is an ethno-state. That's just what it is. And he spent his life advocating for it above and beyond America's interests, right? So I thought, what a weird thing to say to me. It's like the fat kid calling other people fat. Like, what is that? And there is, like, Freud was onto this. And I mean, there is a description of this phenomenon. But it takes my breath away every time. I'm taking money from a foreign government? No, you are actually. I'm woke? No, I'm not. You are. It's weird.
The projection, right? Exactly.
Projection, yeah.
And so, I mean, you worked for a neocon. I mean, Kristol was a neocon, and
big time. Big time.
Right. Yeah. When you think about the neocons driving the war agenda, especially since 9/11. If not before 9/11, as your documentary gets into, right? And these neocons, a lot of them are dual, if not all, are dual Israeli citizens. So you literally have foreign influence when it comes to Israel in very important positions in our government that are literally pushing an endless war agenda, right? On whatever they deem, whatever country they deem, and so far we've knocked off almost every country that they've deemed a threat to Israel. So when did you wake up to this influence? I mean, because again, you worked for Kristol. So what was your awakening to the power of this neocon Zionist influence, let's call it?
Well, I always was aware of the power and the influence, of course. I mean, I moved to Washington in high school. My dad worked for the government, so I was around this stuff a lot. I was around politics a lot and the workings of government, intel agencies, all that stuff from a young age. I didn't understand it. I still don't fully understand it, but I certainly have marinated in it. And I always knew that you were not welcome to treat Israel like any other country. You had to kind of genuflect and show respect and not say certain things. Whereas, if Malawi or Malaysia or Belgium did something, it's like, you could just say it, but you can't with Israel. And that's always been true. And that was fine. I wasn't really I didn't think about it too much. I don't really care, actually. I love Israel as a country. I love Jerusalem. It's still my favorite city in the world. It will always be. I love it. And so I was not against Israel, like the place, the country. And I know people in the Israeli government who I like. But as time went on, I began to see that Israel's imperatives and America's imperatives, their interests were very different. And, living through the global war on terror, GWAT, and, at a close vantage, really changed me. And of course, it was the Iraq War, changed me completely. I didn't understand very much about anything until I went to Iraq in December of 2003 and was just shocked by what a disaster it was. And one thing I had noticed is that a lot of the people in the neoconservatives, by the way, it's not a synonym for Jew. They're not all Jewish at all. By the way, John Bolton is not a Jew. And he is every bit as enthusiastic a neocon as anybody. But I've been around all these people. I knew them well. I worked with them. And I never thought they were smart. I never thought that. I don't know why. Everyone would say, oh, Crystal's such a genius. He can barely write. He's not a genius at all. I mean, he's above average IQ, but he's not a genius. He's not smart. Bob Kagan is like an idiot. He went to Yale. I was like, how did that happen? And then John Bolton is like truly stupid, like truly just not a smart guy, doesn't read books, doesn't. And I just thought, this is so I knew that. But when I got to Iraq and I saw the world that they had made, it was a world made by stupid people, unwise people who have no idea what they're doing. So for me, the radicalizing fact was their incompetence. Because people would always say, Bill Kristol, he's Dan Quayle's brain. I'm pretty sure Dan Quayle's smarter than Bill Kristol. Bill Kristol had a column for the New York Times and they had to drop it because he couldn't write it because he's too dumb to write like a 750-word piece, which is pretty dumb.
They remind me of a lot of the academic problem, right? When you go to schools, like you go to school at Ivy League and you're theorizing, well, terrorism is driven by X, Y, and Z. And you're like, you guys are sitting here in a classroom reading books and theorizing. Go out into the country, spend some time.
Yes.
And to that point, I just want to dive into your 9/11 thing because obviously we talk about, you talk about the neocon drive to want conflict. With these countries that we got into, Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Libya, and amongst others. But really, there was a lot of knowledge about the desire for terrorism to occur. Like the warnings were going out. I was in Somaliland in summer of 2001, and it was June, July, and we're in Somaliland, which is basically Somalia, but it was before it became an independent state, and we were getting warnings from the embassy saying terror attacks. There's a threat of terror attacks, and it was known. It was going out on to all the embassies. So we saw this stuff right in July.
Wow.
And this goes into, again, part of the tells that there was something brewing, and our intelligence community absolutely knew it, and not just ours. As you get into the documentary, foreign intelligence knew it. So to you, what are some of the biggest tells that there was a greater conspiracy at work than the conspiracy of Osama bin Laden and his network of, jihadis?
I mean, there are a couple. One was the knowledge that CIA clearly had. I mean, John Brennan was station chief in Riyadh when 13 of the 19 hijackers got their visas to come to the United States. And he later became, of course, CIA director. They followed CIA followed a bunch of these guys around the world and then into the United States and continued to follow them in the United States. And they didn't tell FBI. This is well known. Mossad knew they were there, also followed a few of these guys, at least a few of them. Now, to what they knew, I don't have access to their databases, so I don't know. I can't say with certainty, but they knew these guys were bad actors. They knew they were here. They knew that they were bent on committing acts of violence in the United States. Did they know they were going to commit 9/11? Again, I don't know. Clearly, the Israelis knew something because a bunch of them were arrested on 9/11 taking video of the towers coming down and celebrating. And that's not a guess. That's what the FBI interrogations show. So that's not anti-Semitic. It has nothing to do with Jews. This is a foreign country's intel service in our country. And that's part of the problem here with this whole topic is that the language has been so distorted and hijacked that you feel like if you're like me and you're committed to not having hate against any group, And I really am committed to that as a Christian. And you've got a million Jewish friends, people you love who are Jewish. It's like, I don't want to offend anybody. You just have to remember, no, no, no. I'm from America. I was born here. This is my country. I'm a voter. I'm a citizen. I'm a taxpayer. If a foreign country sends its intel service onto my soil and does things that don't help me, I have a right not to like it and to talk about it. That's not an attack against any group. That's criticism of a foreign nation. So anyway, part of it is just like freeing your mind from these lies. Um, so that is all evidence that irrefutable evidence that they knew that these guys were up to something. To me, the most compelling evidence and most shocking really took place in public, in the financial markets, in the public equity markets, where somebody bet against the two airlines, United and American, whose planes were hijacked that day, and against the banks that were in the Twin Towers, which were taken down that day. And they did it right before 9/11. So whoever did that had foreknowledge of 9/11, like granular foreknowledge of 9/11. So we can never know who that is. Oh, but we do know who it is, actually. The FBI found out and said, we found out who that was, and have never released the name of that investor or investors. And it's like, on what grounds could you keep that secret? Where is that person? Where are those people? Can we ask them? How did you know 9/11 was coming? Like, explain this to me. Speak slowly so I can understand. And they never have. And so my interest is forcing a new look at this with that question first and foremost. Tell us the identity of these people, because that's got to be a thread that will unravel the broader story. I mean, of course. And again, the reason I'm fixated on that is that we're not guessing about it. These are publicly executed trades. So we don't need, this is not like deep web stuff, dark web. This is not like 4chan. This is like, this happened on the New York Stock Exchange. And anyway, we could answer those questions in about 4 minutes.
And yeah, and again, I mean, we know the collaboration. People think, oh, it's so far-fetched to have Saudi intelligence working with Israelis, Americans.
No,
Well, guess what? We ran the jihadis in Afghanistan all through the 80s with that same coterie, right?
of course.
Saudi.
It's a daily reality, including right now. I mean, intel services work together. Hostile intel services work together. All kinds of enemy leaders who, if you watch NBC News, are sworn enemies, are actually in contact with the CIA right now. I know that.
Right.
So the world is very complex, and that's banal, but it's nevertheless true. And it's so complex, and the webs are so unexpected in their complexity. I just have noticed this from being alive a long time, that it's hard for people to believe, like, wait, I thought the Saudis were anti-Semitic. They couldn't be working with Mossad. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
Come on, son. Yeah.
So toward that end, you've got a great series, the 9/11 series that on your network. I highly recommend everyone watch it because it's a great 2.5 hour fact-based dive into, just the unsolved elements. I mean, you don't offer the solution. It's like JFK. It's beyond our
exactly.
I mean, unless the real top level people start to come out with memoirs, we're not going to know how these things really work, right? But we can certainly show that it didn't happen the way that we were sold. And toward that end, Charlie Kirk was your friend, I know, and
yes,
and this is out there, basically crusading to say, look, I want to find out who really killed him. Do you believe there was a conspiracy to kill Charlie?
I don't know. I have a lot of questions about it. By the way, there's no evidence that, any group was as of today. I think it's the 8th of October. I don't know anything that's not online. So I'll just say that. But here are the things I'd be looking at. And I don't know if they have been looked at, which I think is weird. But the first thing I look at is this guy, Zinn, who was in the crowd, who jumps up and starts screaming, I did it, I did it, I did it. And then apparently told people at the hospital that he was paid to do that. Is that true? What was that? Who is that guy? Like, I think it's fair to tug on that thread really hard. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe he's just a mental patient who happened to have kiddie porn on his computer, so now he can't talk to him because he's locked up. Okay. By the way, I should say of kiddie porn specifically, which I'm totally opposed to. I'm opposed to all porn, by the way, and OnlyFans. I hate all that. So I'm not defending porn, but I do notice that anyone who gets sideways with the intel agencies winds up with kiddie porn on his computer. That's a theme that like people joke about in Washington. So that was like immediately, as soon as they found kiddie porn, I was like, oh, wait a second. Wait a second. Okay. I could be wrong. I'm not, but we need to know what that was about. Second, there were a number of people on X who predicted the shooting. X accounts had said, or at least two, on September 10th, Charlie Kirk is going to meet his maker in Utah or whatever. It's a big day for Charlie Kirk. Like, I wouldn't want to be Charlie Kirk or whatever. Clearly, they had foreknowledge of this. Who are those people? And have they been interviewed by the FBI? I can't get a straight answer on that, which is weird. Third thing that I think we need to know is, how was this guy radicalized? If you're going to tell me he was a lone gunman, which he may have been, I don't know. I'm willing to believe that he pulled the trigger or had a gun and was on the roof. But how did he get radicalized? Like, it takes a lot for someone to go from being just a 24-year-old living a life to murdering a stranger with a high-powered rifle. What? Like, what was the process? On what grounds was what was he radicalized about? How did this happen? Tell me the story. And I literally have no idea, and no one's bothered to explain. And then, all the anomalies in the timeline, which are real, but maybe easy to explain. I don't know. The bottom line is, no one's explained it in a coherent way. And I've said this to a bunch of people in positions of authority, like, if you're mad at Candace because she's throwing out things you say are untrue, maybe that's your fault. Maybe you've left a vacuum here into which new theories will flood. Like, that's just the way the world is. So I think the people in charge are the ones responsible for telling us what happened. And they're like, whatever. And the last thing I'll say is, I've never seen this before. So typically when something like this happens, the feds are out there everywhere through their media channels telling you how this happened and why. They're trying to control the story. I haven't seen that here. I'm not saying that's bad, but it's definitely weird or different. I've never seen that. So people have every right to wonder what the hell happened. This was a huge deal. He was a good friend of mine. So there's the personal thing. I haven't really talked about that, but it is upsetting to me. But even if I didn't know him, I would feel that, because it's my country. Yeah. And the authorities are the ones who are paid to make that better. Yeah. To get the facts, bring the facts to the public, present the facts in court, and effect justice. That's their job. And so we should be mad. If there's anyone to be mad at here, or is there anyone to push, politely, gently, but persistently, it's the authorities, it's law enforcement, state and federal, right? I mean,
it starts with forensics. I mean, I just did this documentary, RFK Legacy, which deals with the RFK Sr. murder, and the forensics don't add up in the RFK Sr. murder. They indicate he was shot from behind at very close range, and Sirhan, who did confess to killing him but has no memory, right? And we know he was basically railroaded in that case because he was under mind control. So everyone thinks that Sirhan killed him, but you look at the forensics and it's impossible that Sirhan killed him. So I think the same with Charlie Kirk, right? It's like, we have to look at the forensics. Does a 30-06 round really just get stopped by his neck bone because he's a man of steel? Or is there something else going on here? And the forensics will, unfortunately, I don't know that.
I don't know. The only thing I would say about that, I'm a very skeptical person by nature. It's my job. I shoot a lot, and including 30-06 and a lot of other calibers. And the only thing I'll say, no, that doesn't make obvious sense. 30-06 is a really scary, big round. It's a deer round, it's a military round. However, I've seen bullets do really weird things over the years.
True. So just in terms of, the importance of Charlie, though, and why he was, I believe, if he was killed by a conspiracy, as with RFK Sr. was anti-war, right? Charlie was anti-war. He told Trump why, going to war with Iran was not a popular move for young people in America, right? And he really counseled him on this. Now we've got Netanyahu out there saying, well, Iran's about to have intercontinental missiles, just like we heard about Iraq, right? Back in 2002 and 2003, Iraq's about to have, these missiles that are going to hit America. Do you feel that we are being pulled into a war with Iran right now, and that the reason maybe for Trump getting tough with Russia is basically to say, listen, Russia, stay out of this. We're gonna go to war here?
Well, we're always on the brink of being pulled into whatever war Israel wants us to fight on its behalf. That's not their fault. It's our fault. It's the fault of our Congress and our leadership. I mean, Israel has its own goals. I don't agree with those goals, but it's not my country. This is my country. And so for my leaders to just blithely go along with whatever plan that some other country has is treason. And I hope they're punished for it. I mean that. So yeah, but Israel's always trying to suck us into some war, always, and get us to pay for it and get us to risk the lives of our men in it. And this has happened for, many years. So yes, we know that. I don't think as a political matter at this point, it's sellable. I just don't think that any American leader can go to the American people and be like, yeah, it's real. Iran is our greatest threat. Really? Gold is at over $4,000 an ounce this morning. It's $4,056 per ounce. What is that? That's the world's new reserve currency right there. It's gold. It's not the US dollar, it's gold. So dude, that's an emergent. If gold is at $4,000 an ounce, like what the fuck is going on? Don't tell me Iran is the greatest risk. There have been zero Shiite terror attacks on American soil that in my lifetime that I'm aware of. If there have been some, I missed them. It is not the greatest threat we face. So shut up. And I just don't think anyone can make that case with a straight face at this point. Do you?
No, and I don't understand why at the same time Trump is getting belligerent with Russia saying, hey, posting, I think on True Social, yeah, Ukraine can win this war with NATO support. I mean,
it cannot win this war. All it's doing is destroying Europe. It's already destroyed Ukraine, which, by the way, will cease to be a nation. Zelensky they changed the law in Ukraine so foreigners can buy farmland. They can buy the soil of Ukraine. Its male population has been decimated. They're going to fill it with third world migrants, and there will be no Ukraine. And I do think that was the plan. If I'm just being honest, like, what is this? Well, the idea was you can't have, well, I don't want to speculate, but I do think, I think it's the saddest thing I've seen, really, outside my borders, what's happened to Ukraine. And I mean that.
Why is Trump still selling arms? He has the power right now to force a peace deal because we're the major arms supplier. I mean, Europe is not going to sell arms. I mean, they talk about supporting the war, but they don't have the budget to do it. So why is Trump allowing this to continue?
Look at the debt to GDP ratios in some of these European countries. Europe is I spent a lot of my life in Europe. I love family in Europe. I love Europe. My ancestors were from Europe. Okay, so I'm pro-Europe, but Europe is falling apart at high speed. And it's falling apart because the same ideas that got us into this war with Russia have been dominant in Europe for 80 years. And it's totally destroyed it. After thousands of years building this incredibly complex and beautiful culture, the greatest the world's ever seen by far, this Christian civilization has been completely destroyed in 100 years. And I couldn't be sadder about it. But no, as a practical matter, no, of course they're not going to beat Russia. Russia is, it's an industrial power, it's a resource power, it's also a close military ally of China at this point. I mean, it's a joke. It's a joke. Of course they're not going to beat Russia. All they can do is destroy themselves and destroy the world with a nuclear exchange. So this is deranged. I don't know who's driving it. And I'm really upset about it. Not because for any reason other than I think it's terrible for the world and particularly terrible for the United States. And it's also fixable. They're pretending that Crimea is part of Ukraine now and they want Crimea back. It's like, oh, this is too childish. I can't deal with it. It's too stupid and it's too reckless. It's so reckless. Yeah. So anyway, I've enough adjectives from me, but I am really, really distressed by it. And I think most people are kind of beyond the point where you're Putin's puppet or who cares? Shut up. Who cares? I don't care what you think of me. I work for Qatar and Putin. All right. I happen to really like Russia and I really like Qatar for that matter, but I don't like either one as much as I like the United States. And that's the point.
Your point about Russia, I'm just curious, when you went there to interview Putin and spend a little time in Russia, did something change in your worldview when you met with Putin? Did you have a new understanding of his understanding of the world, of his perspective on history and Russia's relationship to the West?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and not what I expected at all. I mean, I think Putin actually likes the West. I think Putin probably likes the West more than anyone who could potentially replace Putin, for sure. And he spent his youth in Germany, in East Germany, as a KGB officer. But probably it felt to me like looking across the wall and thinking, pretty girls, nightclubs. I'd like some of that. Like the fact, look, it's not my country, it's not my language, it's not my culture. There's most things about Russia I don't understand. But on a surface level, Russia is beautiful and civilized and Christian, and it's an ancient culture and an impressive culture. I've always loved Russian literature. I've got a barking dog behind me. You come here. And sorry, it's bird season in Maine, so my dog's like, "Why are we chasing birds?" Because I got to work. That's why. No, it's an amazing place, but I've traveled a lot my whole life, so I have always understood that each country sees the world through its own lens and through the lens of its own interests. And so I'm not shocked to discover that Putin's perspective is very Russian. Of course it is. It should be. He's the most popular leader in the world, by the way, by far. I mean, if you travel, you don't, unless you're in Western Europe, Canada, in the Anglosphere, outside the Anglosphere, Asia, Middle East, Eastern Europe, you don't meet anyone who doesn't like Putin. Like, Putin is a global celebrity. I'm not, it's like shameful to say it. It's just a fact. I travel. I know. So why is that? Because Putin has put his own country's interests above his own in a lot of ways, in a way that Western leaders don't. Compare it by the numbers to 2000. Like,
Yeah.
please.
There's no comparison from the 90s Russia with suicide and AIDS and drug addiction, and the economy was in shambles, and the oligarchs ran it. And to today, I mean, as you said, you travel the streets, it's like a classic European city in Moscow or St. Petersburg, and there's all these things. But they're saying that Russia's about to collapse, which again is this propaganda piece that the West is pushing to say, hey, if we keep fighting the Ukraine war.
Wait, can I just say, Sean, what you just, when you were describing Russia in the 90s, I was thinking that sounds a lot like where I live now. I mean, I do think countries and civilizations go through cycles, and we're definitely, in a down cycle, and not just the West. Throughout the industrialized world, South Korea is committing suicide.
Yes.
So in Canada, they're murdering their own citizens, and under the maids program. I mean, it's like very overt now, and so I guess in some ways Russia is an inspiring story for the rest of us, that that was only 25 years ago, and now whatever you think of Russia, I mean, it's a thriving country with self-respect and purpose, and every measurement I think proves that. And so you can come out of these tailspins, but we're in a tailspin.
Yes, yes. And I mean, I guess the last question is, do you believe that Trump's, make America great again is genuine, that this is a potential, with him being leader, we do have a path out of this national suicide?
Yes, we do have a path out of it. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's not, Trump is not running the government by himself. And, I know some of the people running the government, not everybody, obviously, but I know some of them very well, like personally, stay at my house level well. And these are very sincere people. There's also some insincere people, and I think it's obvious who they are, but there are some really sincere, selfless, altruistic people. It's a shrinking category in the United States. The America of my youth had a lot of altruism in it. Like, I'm doing this thing because it's good for everybody, not necessarily for me. And I think since the country became an oligarchy, since Bill Ackman took over, that spirit is gone. But it lives on in certain individuals, and they have a few key positions at the White House, and I'm really grateful for it. So yes, of course, there's an opportunity to make things much better, much, much better. In order to stop the tailspin, that would take, of course, a religious revival, because the main problems in people's lives are not external, they're internal. They have to do with what's in your heart. And, Russia had a spiritual revival, which is one of the reasons the West hates it so much. They want to kill it because it's a Christian country. This is the first thing they did when they took over Ukraine. First thing, they banned the church, make it just another Western tranny country. And I get it. But this is a spiritual battle. And it's one of the reasons they hate the Gulf, by the way. also. I'm Christian, of course. The Gulf is the GCC. The six Gulf countries are Muslim. They're theocracies, really, but they're thriving because they're spiritually grounded. That would be my view. I think that it's not just oil. Equatorial Guinea's not thriving. There's a lot of oil there. Venezuela's not thriving, but the Gulf countries are. Why? Because they're rooted in a belief in God, and it'll take that to save our country, of course.
Yeah. Well said. Thank you, Tucker. Thank you for your time. I know you've got people waiting, so
Thank you.
thank you.